Welcome to this video of the Climate Playbook. This video series is about the human side of climate change, which is the climate in action. This work is my attempts to synthesize the multidisciplinary framework to reveal what is behind climate in action. So I've given this series called the name Climate Inaction Playbook. It is a playbook that goes into the hidden workings of our mind that is behind climate inaction. A little bit about me. My name is Barney Wong, and I founded an organization called OneTinyDrop.org. And the purpose behind the organization is to go after difficult to overcome barriers and to address them from a root cause rather than the symptoms. And hopefully by redefining the problem in a way that addresses the root cause, we can find the ready solutions in them. So the task here is to overcome the barriers of one of our most entrenched problems, which is climate inaction. And the original scope that I was looking into this project was to look at it from the interior experience, the place of consciousness. So I'm looking at this problem in this video through defining the problem by revealing the playbook, those hidden patterns that we don't see, that is concealed, and what is the signal that is behind the noise. I remember a saying that a well-defined problem is said to be 50% solved, and that's from a gentleman named Kettering. And it says that if you define the problem well enough, the solutions could be pretty much self-evident in the process of defining it. So in the Climate Playbook, imagine that there's a tree and there are fruits to the tree. So the fruits of the tree is the enactment of this climate in action, and how is it playing out. And what I did was I looked at several fields or framework to find, was there any convergence? What are they commonly saying about what could possibly be inspiring or motivating climate in action? And some of the fields that I've looked into is personality psychology, into cognitive science, especially the work of John Vervaeke. And there are many branches of sociology that shows that how we all as a group conspire in a culture of silence and inaction to maintain certain benefits without feeling the harm. And lastly, into climate ethics, which is in the branch of philosophy, and how there are processes that we background so that they don't become salient or worthy of being kept in mind, so that we can go after the benefit without feeling the harm. And finally, there's a convergence. This whole video is about the convergence or the synthesis, where none of these frames are necessarily talking to each other, nor are they brought together under the same microscope and deducted for the same common patterns. So it's to break the silo effect of all these fields that may not be talking to each other. So the video series also will cover a common pattern, and the common pattern that, in a sentence or in 2 words, is manipulating salience. And there are systems that are passive and active that help us manipulate our salience, so that we can only retain what we have in our mind that is beneficial, and the ones that are not beneficial or inconvenient or go against our appetite or whatever we're going after, they get backgrounded so that we don't have any ethical considerations for them. And lastly, also there's to address the cognitive miser in us, where being a cognitive miser, we want to make sure that we are not imbalanced, or we're not overloaded or overwhelmed by having too much in our mind, and how we manage our salience landscape so as to prevent being overwhelmed, but at the same time, that management system causes an imbalance that reinforces itself. So the format that I'm looking for this series, the Climate Playbook, is there are a series of 15-minute videos, and each episode would only last around 15 minutes. And my aim is to make a video a week. And in each video, I would like to tackle, or each episode, I like to tackle the different aspects of how we get the system to be in balance. And I'll talk about that in a minute, about what are the different aspects in a general way. So what do you expect from this video series? I would like to propose that this is my proposal as a highly plausible understanding of the problem of climate inaction. And hopefully it's my proposal where it starts a sense of solution pathways that connects to deeper than the superficial read of what's causing climate inaction. And it goes into the interior experience individually, collectively, institutionally as well. And hopefully from that there's a sense of new clarity, a sense of empowerment, a sense of connection of a deeper insight into what you've felt has always been the problem, but never articulated or put together in a framework that brought in many pieces. And lastly, I like to throw in the word attunement, where we are in symphony with our feelings, our thinking, and intuition as to understanding this problem. So I'd like to introduce to you the mechanical representative of what I would like to use to unpack what is behind climate inaction. And this model will capture the dynamic relationships between the individual, the group, society, and how it affects our salience landscape, and how we manipulate our salience landscape so that we can pursue what is important to us, but in the same time, it cuts us off from seeing the holistic effect of pursuing that particular item. What I have here is there are two balloons right here, and imagine the balloon, they represent what's salient to us. The size of the balloon, the bigger the size, the more salient it is, the more it occupies our foreground processes, and it's kept in mind, and we keep that in mind. And this right here represents the aspirational side of us. This balloon here represents the here and now, which is the aspect of ourselves, our processes, that try to solve the problems of our immediate situation, such as powering our lives, putting food on the table, jobs, safety, etc., security. Whereas the aspirational side is the part of us that considers the long term, and also it factors in ethical considerations that are created by the here and now. So this is a mechanical representation. Please don't take this as an accurate mechanical model. Rather, it's a way of analogizing the whole concept of our interior experience into this form that is relatable, tangible, and easy to hold many pieces of dynamics at the same time. So what I'm going to describe is the perfect process. Here we have the here and now balloon that is connected by this middle stem into this aspirational side. And in the perfect process, there's this flow between these two balloons, as well as there are scissors arms that constrains both of them they have joints. So as this balloon S1, or here and now, is getting bigger, it is constrained by these scissor arms because there is this size of balloon right there. So it can only get bigger in so much this can shrink. So there is a process, and we'll get into it, it's called opponent processing, where they serve to make sure none of them become a runaway train. So that is the perfect process, where there is outer constraints and there's inner constraints to ensure that this or that does not become a runaway train. So the heart of the video series will talk about how do we manipulate salience where we're in a situation now where S1 has become so outsized that S2 has become so undersized that we are in this predicament called climate inaction. So there are devices here that are tied to these weights, and I just want to bring this up. There is a pinch point, which is like a valve, and this has a open and closing to it that is attached to this scale. And this bottom part right here is a scale with wires that are handcuffed around these hands, and this particular handcuff is connected to this switch right there. And we'll go through in one of the episodes where we can talk about how our individual habits does not afford us any of this ethical considerations when we chase the here and now. And we can go through examples of driving solo in our cars, eating meat, and simply just not doing anything about the climate, and how we can act with impunity. The second group, the second heap right here is the collective, which is the group. And we'll go into the culture, and we'll go into the group habits that reinforces and protects the individual habits. And the last heap right here is institutions and rituals. And we can look into, again, the group dynamics as to how we protect a group in love and a group identity, and also polarization that is in our discourse. It's populated our discourse so rampantly. But there is a purpose behind polarization. And all these three are works that were drawn out of research on dissonance. So as you can see, we'll talk about the three heaps. And one of the things we'll talk about in the episode is, what is this particular switch? And it's a passive system that is triggered by these actions right here. And what that serves is that it prevents the growth of S1 to influence the growth of S2, which is the aspirational side. Right here is a little more difficult to see, but it's a device, and it's like a chemical scrubber. And what it does is that any leaks that make it past this pinch point goes through this scrubbing device that neutralizes that flow of air or flow of gas, so that it does not expand our salience to our salience of our aspirational salience of S2. And here is a reservoir that feeds into that scrubber, and there are three valves that we can talk about. And the three valves represent the three triggers that we're trying to avoid being triggered. And this way, when we avoid being triggered, again, it keeps S2 small. So I ask that you look forward to the next episodes as we get more into detail, but this is the general structure and model that we'll be using to explain climate in action. I ask that you like this channel, like this video and subscribe to this channel so that as I post them on a weekly basis, you get to see the details that are behind each part that I just brought up. So thank you very much for your time and staying with the channel, and hopefully we can all go through this and find some novel insight, some cutting edge thoughts, and a perspective and framework that makes the solution much more accessible and much more defined and clear to work with. Thank you.